Oh, pretty well on the sunny day in LA.
Well, it's freezing cold, drizzly morning here in Melbourne, so
Oh, sorry.
that's all right. Well, mate, I wanted to start off by saying this film is absolutely amazing. It completely blew me away, so congratulations.
Oh, awesome, man. It's always a relief when you hear that there's an impact like that. It's I want to impact one way or the other, whether you love it or hate it. I want it to be intense.
So, mate, tell us a little bit about where your journey began with this film.
Um, yeah, this film basically, I didn't write it, so it was one of those things. The writer I had known for about 6 years, and this was back in 2013. He just started sending me pages of this script. An introduction, then 5 more pages, then 10 more pages, and so as I was reading this, by the time that first third of the movie was ending, and there's a very intense sort of scene, I'm like, where the hell is this going to go from here? It's like it's the most disturbing sort of situation is happening, and I was like riveted, but I was like, how you can't sustain this? Like, what the hell is going to happen now? And then I was just really engrossed to where it sort of switched gears and went into these sort of different chapters, and you meet new characters, and you know and as much as that's probably not the most, it's not totally original in terms of a chapter device, but the way this movie was moving, I was constantly just invigorated, as I was reading. Just I had no idea where it was going, and by the time I finished and he got done with the first draft, I was really unsettled, and I was thinking about it quite a bit. And that was I was kind of itching to maybe do a horror film or a genre type of film, and because my first 2 films were more dramas, and so for me this definitely rang like a horror movie. People can come up with definitions of horror, but to me this was, whether it's in a reimagining or I wanted the tone for this to be horror. And so, yeah, that's kind of how it got the genesis of it. And spent 6 years trying to get it made.
You said
A couple times.
you said that you were receiving just like 5 and 10 pages at a time. One of the things I found with the film last night was that it just drew me in from the very beginning, and I couldn't turn it off. I couldn't even get up to go and get a drink. I had to see what was going on next. Was it frustrating with the pages coming through 5 and 10 at a time? Like, did you have that same feeling where you just needed to know what happened next?
Absolutely. And it's funny because I think us creative people, filmmakers, writers, we respond off of energy, positive energy like that. And so I think if, I didn't react excited and sort of like, responding to him right away and reading it right away, maybe he wouldn't have continued. I mean, he is that type of writer. I mean, he's written stuff, started scripts in the past, and as of even recently, and sent them to me, and I like it, but maybe I'm not as responsive, and I can sense there's like maybe a lack of interest in continuing to write, and so I think he knew, based on my reaction at least, that this script was working.
You said that you really wanted to make a horror film or a genre piece. What was it that was drawing you in that direction with your directing career?
Well, I've always been a fan of horror. I always have. I used to make bad horror movies in junior high and high school with my friends, like bad short films. We'd hang out and literally hacking Scream or Michael Myers, horror films, or our own ideas, and we were just dorks making movies. And so I've always loved horror. I just hadn't really gotten into the feature lengths of making one yet, but it's probably one of my favorite genres, to be honest. My first short film was a horror movie, but yeah, at that time, it was 2013, I just felt like horror was not what it was today. Since 2013, you've had this sort of renaissance of elevated, very interesting psychological horror do really well. The Witch, Hereditary, It Follows. There's a lot of them, and I knew I was on the right track because I had wanted to do a movie that was a more mature sort of take on something that wasn't about monsters or torture porn, horror, slasher, or pop-up scares. I wanted to do one that really stayed etched in your mind, and something that you thought of after, and the things that sort of creep yourself out later in the night. That is sort of what I wanted to do with this. That was my goal.
Yeah, there's a feeling that seems to come with American Gothic style films that you just don't get with any other kind of horror at all. How difficult as a director is it to get that feeling into the film? Because I think that's part of what makes you feel so unsettled when you watch a film in this genre.
Absolutely there. I mean, it's a little intimidating, to be honest, as a filmmaker, because I've not done horror. I know what I think, how things operate in the horror, in that universe. But when you're shooting and you're executing things, you're really kind of just taking a risk, like, and when you're filming, you're actually having the time of your life. You're not like terrified while filming. You're laughing. You're jumping on the actors because you think they did a great job with something, and so it never feels scary while filming it. So you're going off of something you've prepared for. I'm an over-preparer type of person, so I put brain to paper with shots and sort of music references way ahead of time, and so I was sort of using a lot of temp score while editing that I had planned for 6 years. And so I was reliant on the music really helping bridge that tension, make that tension come through, and let you know that this is going to a place that isn't necessarily going to be pretty, and it's hopefully going to unsettle you. But I think you kind of are just going off of your, the preparation and your guts with things, because you can edit something together, and if it's not having the result that you hope for, there's not much you can do. And so, yeah, I think I just, you take a risk when you make a movie.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Plot-wise, there's a realism there as well. It's something that we all face here in Australia. I think I read a stat the other day that said that they predict within 20 years, 70% of Australian farms will be foreign-owned by large corporations. So that element of a family selling up their farm and the family getting together, that can always be an horrific event when families get together for some families. Was that realism something that kind of appealed to you?
Yeah, I mean, to me, I wanted this movie to be grounded in something you can relate to, and that makes it a little more scary to me. That's what I felt haunted about it, and the whole underlying, subplot about them having, selling it to oil companies just plays into, the sort of, like you said, like corporations, oil people taking it over for, whether it be money, greed, whatever you want to say. I thought it was fun to play with that. The same with like the sort of curse aspect of this. There's themes of curse with gold, with family trauma. I mean, really, I think trauma is things people can relate to. Everyone's got it, and the horror here is trauma manifesting itself, in human nature.
So tell us a little bit about your casting process as well, because you've ended up with an absolutely fantastic cast. Robert Patrick, Nick Stahl, Kelly Garner. Tell us a little bit about how that cast all came together.
Yeah, I mean, it was sort of piecemealed. In 2015, when I almost got it made, I had cast Scott Hayes. Scott Hayes played Thomas, which I knew that role could make or break the movie. I knew if it was played as wrong, people were just the movie could just suck. It was gonna, and so I really was grateful to land Scott Hayes because I knew his work on Child of God, which was a Cormac McCarthy novel adaptation, and I knew he was going to do this right, and so I trusted that, and so he was attached very early on, and we had actually cast Michael Parks to play Josiah back then. And that was a very haunting experience sitting with Michael and Scott reading some scenes together because I didn't know if Michael Parks was talking to me or reading this character because he was doing it like it was terrifying. I look at Scott and be like, what is happening here? This is like, it's almost too much. Like he was in it. And unfortunately, Michael passed away shortly after that, and the money from that investor didn't come through, and so, back to the drawing board to try and get it made again. And then Robert, I was referred to through Ronnie Blevins, who plays the role with Nick Stahl in the movie, one of the guys going to the carnival with him. He had done Tone Deaf with Robert, and he basically was like, man, you really should cast Robert Patrick for this. He'd be perfect. Let me link you guys up. Which was a blessing because a lot of times circumventing agents to get to actors is a necessary thing to get a genuine shot at them for low budget independent films. So I was lucky enough to get on a Skype call with Robert, and he was pretty reluctant at first to do it. He really liked the script, but I think he was a little nervous about some of those scenes in it, rightfully. And so I think he just wanted to know that he was in good hands. And so with the filmmaker, because I think, you could take the script and execute it a totally different way. And I don't think it would work. Like it could be a disaster, like depending on, I think who makes it. And so I think he just wanted to know. And so he watched my previous film and, then called me right away and was like, all right, well, let's do this. And that's how I landed him. Nick Stahl, I had been a fan of from 1993 with Man Without a Face when he was a little kid. Watched all his films growing up. And so I was always a big fan of him. And I had heard he was back acting because he had taken a break from acting for a while. And when I saw his headshots, he'd been back for about a year, and so I told our cast, I think we should really think about him for this role, and it was just perfect. I think he really responded to it. We talked on the phone once or twice, and then I didn't meet him till day one of filming. And then Kelly, after we had those other three actors and we were moving forward, her name came up, and obviously seeing, she had done Bully with Nick, and I knew that they hadn't worked together since, but I figured that was going to be something that they trust each other, because there's some scenes in the movie that, they needed that bond because they're siblings. And so it kind of just worked out perfectly with them. Tony Hale I had worked with before on my previous film, and he's just one of those guys I hope to land and put in every movie I do. And Jake Weber came out for 2 days and was one of the most technical pros I've ever worked with. But yeah, that's how we got that group together.
Definitely. Well, it's absolutely amazing, and it meant a lot to me because every day I walk into my office, I see a disturbing behaviour cardboard cutout of Nick and Katie Holmes and everybody, and a Bully poster. So definitely meant a lot to me. Mate, I know we are...
He's got some Bully stories for sure.
Yeah. We have run right out of time, so just one quick question before we go. What would you like to say to everybody out there before they watch the film on Shudder this weekend?
Well, I would say it's a ride, and like it or hate it, you're going to come and walk away from that movie with an intense reaction one way or the other. So I hope they do enjoy it, but yeah. I would say also to invest in the movie. Like, this is the type of movie you sit and you invest in its runtime. It's a 2-hour movie. Some people, I think, you know, I don't like to say slow burn, just because it's a term that I think was overused. But this is the kind of movie you really invest in, and you don't miss moments. Like, you should watch every bit of it.